like to introduce our guests today. It's my pleasure to have you. Gayle, Pirie, and John Clark are the chefs and co-owners of Foreign Cinema. They've been deeply involved in the very competitive but innovative San Francisco restaurant scene for over 2 decades. They first
30 years.
How many?
30
decades.
3 decades. Oh my gosh. I think you met at Vicolo Pizza, right? It's a restaurant in the Civic Center. And then you later went on to the legendary Zuni Cafe. And you eventually, very quickly, I think, became the co-chefs de cuisine there. Is that right?
That is correct.
And then
that was in the late 80s.
In the 80s, okay. And then you kind of made a left turn and started a consulting practice for restaurants. And you helped design and come up with restaurant concepts for clients all over the United States, Asia, and Canada. Mm-hmm. And you then even moved to Hong Kong for a couple of years. Is that right?
To a bunch of months over the course of a year.
Okay, all right. And then you traveled widely throughout Asia and Europe. And then you eventually came back, I guess in the early 2000s or so?
Well, our home base was always Berkeley. And, we came back to the house. We have a house here, this house. We've been here since the early 90s. And at some point, our son was born in 1998, and we started sticking a little closer to home. And then the opportunity at Foreign Cinema showed up, and we negotiated and entered that fray.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
All right. And you've been, so Foreign Cinema has been in existence under your ownership and guidance since 2003?
2001.
2001, okay. And it's basically a California Mediterranean menu but that evolves like daily. You have daily menu changes, and you have a full oyster bar. And I know that it's won many accolades through the San Francisco Chronicle, top 100 restaurants. And you've, in the meantime, also been able to publish several books. The first one was Country Egg, City Egg in 2000. And then Bride and Groom in 2006. And then most recently, the Foreign Cinema Cookbook in 2018.
That is correct.
So I know the restaurant business is very competitive in normal times, pre-pandemic. But this year, I don't know how anybody could have prepared for it. And so what was the most difficult aspect of the restaurant's first closure in March 2020?
I'm going to back that up a tiny bit and say we had a board meeting of the restaurant. There's a few partners. We had a board meeting in February, at which point our closest partner had suggested that maybe we wouldn't do any distribution or anything. And that he foresaw that maybe we'd end up in a closure. And both of us thought, oh, this is kind of a little bit much. We didn't think so. And a week before the closure in March came about 3 weeks after our board meeting, we sat down to dinner with 2 really good friends, Annie and Craig Stoltz of Delphina, and we were all talking about this. And even none of us at that moment foresaw a closure. 1 week later, we were closed. And it was, I think, a real surprise to us, honestly. We personally didn't think it would come to this. And certainly when we entered this closure, the very first days, we didn't think that we'd be closed for almost 90 days. So we were fortunately in a good position, the restaurant was, but still, it was a complete, honestly, a bit of a surprise and shock. I mean, it wasn't something we thought was going to occur.
Do you think most of your friends in the business had the same feeling?
I think Craig and Annie may not have seen it coming that weekend. We had dinner together, and we were discussing this amazing pandemic. And I think we were all shocked. And then we all entered a kind of a grief, shock, anger phase of how did this occur? How did we get to this place? But over the time, it is, there's been an evolution of emotions and growth and hope and, ways to cope with this huge, amazing events, catastrophic events.
How did your team of employees deal with the closure in March?
The first thing is when you're dealing with people at home, babies and animals show up into the picture. And this is our cat who has decided to join the group. Please, I'm so sorry. Rephrase the question.
Well, we were lucky enough to be able to, cover payroll and then maintain health insurance for the closure and offer loans because we were unsure how long this would go. We kept thinking a month, 2 months, 3 months. But we were able to maintain health insurance. And then if anybody was in dire straits with rent, we were providing emergency loans to anybody on staff who needed it. And then luckily through Meals on Wheels, we could provide meal kits to our staff 4 days a week, as well as the community in the Mission District, which made us feel really good about just contributing and getting through the days. And then I think everybody was working really hard at just trying to figure out how we were going to survive. Really, just, your mind was completely working, like how to maneuver this. So we caught wind of the PPP loan possibilities. And then all of a sudden you were investigating, well, how will we get that? How will we be able to work with that? So, it wasn't a vacation by any means by shutting the restaurant down.
No, the first 90 days was pretty complicated.
Pretty sad.
We did not lay any employee off. We furloughed them. We had 135 employees. We paid whoever was on health insurance, we paid those premiums all the way up till July 1st. We immediately got together with our landlord, who is a darling woman, Colleen Meharry. She has been a resident of San Francisco her entire life. She was been a restaurateur, and she owns a couple of buildings, and she was extremely helpful in working with us, and forgave quite a bit of rent. So, and has for many months, for all of last year. That's a big help.
You think her being a restaurateur, do you think that the fact that she was a former restaurateur helped?
I think, yeah,
and your situation?
absolutely. Absolutely. The fact that she had been working, and her father owned a restaurant chain called Ms. Brown's Feed Bag. And it was a San Francisco staple for 40 plus years. So we were, I think that was really a big help. And plus she was a reasonable person. She understood us and understood the restaurant industry and didn't want to cause any damage to a business that was pretty successful.
Yeah, it's a major, Foreign Cinema is a big presence in the Mission. Well, physically it's a big restaurant. It's a ginormous space. We're the only people with 1,000 square foot hallway. It's a big space, and it's a big presence. It's a busy restaurant, and we're incredibly fortunate to be part of it, honestly. And how did we cope with the pandemic? We were blessed to have an outdoor patio when we got to reopen. Who has that? What restaurateur has the ability to, maintain business with an outdoor enclosed area? It's luck. We're so blessed, and there's lots to think about and ponder. And our next door neighbors, Sherwood Design Engineers, loaned us or gave us the use of their back patio area, which is only a few hundred square feet, but we get about 15, 20 people in there. So we were able to expand into that area.
we were able to bring back 60%, a little bit more of our employees. And we felt really good about that. And restart the engine, I guess, June 24th of 2020, and then proceed into the months all the way up into reopening indoor dining in October.
Which lasted 7 days.
Oh, wow.
Did it only last 7 days?
So we hired for that expansion. We started, Lisa, we started with 160 employees at the start of, the pandemic closure of March 6th. And then we reopened with 50 employees. We were, it's heavy duty to let go of so many employees. Every restaurateur knows how hard this was to just stop. But at least we were able to take care of the majority of our staff and help the ones that were not going to return, and open with, luckily, 55 employees, including John and myself. So it was a big effort, a Herculean effort to get open and to rehabilitate the building, because when we did close, we put in some investment into some infrastructure that would not normally have been able to be done easily. It was non-glamorous work of, internal pipes and some kitchen work that nobody would have seen, but we were trying to get done for several years, and then we were able to do it. So we pulled everything out of the kitchen, cleaned it all, put it all back in. So getting open was pretty intense in June. But we were happy to do it, and the staff was happy to do it. We were so grateful to be able to open.
What was the capacity of the outdoor dining space before the pandemic, and then after? How much did you have to reduce?
So our outdoor space is generally about 80 seats, and that's only because we have indoor. So it's limited by how many seats we can actually cook for at a given moment in time. On really hot days, we probably put 100 seats in our outdoor courtyard. Now, the pandemic meant we had to move people 6 feet apart, measured it out. We took over an upper patio that we didn't normally use for dining. We rehabbed it a little bit, and we took our neighbor's place, and we ended up with 100 seats.
Okay.
All at 6 feet apart. So we were able to proceed as basically a 90 to 100 seat restaurant throughout the bulk of the closure. And then we opened into indoor dining. We grabbed 2 rooms that we had and added another 25 seats in each room. And then that was a success. And then the city said, no, you got to pull that down. And then, of course, in December, they said, you got to close back down.
How was that different compared to the first time? Was there a difference?
Yes, because the minute we opened on June 24th, I was sure we were going to be closed again.
Oh.
So I was just sitting there waiting for when we were going to be closed, whether it was going to be in 4 weeks, 8 weeks, it didn't matter. We were all preparing for a closure.
We talked about it with the staff during each day's lineup, because there was just a lot of recovery going on. Individuals who had a job, who lost a job, who were coming back to a job, a lot of them, were uneasy. So we tried to talk about it and to alleviate some of their stress by saying, if we close, and then we'll reopen again. Because during the time from June 24th to December 6th, we were basically incident free. Every staff member was tested every 2 weeks. We did as many safety protocols as was possible. And we felt very good about the public. When we opened in June 24th, 2020, we were just waiting to see what the public would do. We wanted to respond to what we would learn from the public. And what we learned was that they were just so eager to come back to a place that they felt safe to be in and dine in. So we were feeling very confident that if we had to close, we could reopen again very safely. It still was daunting to the staff. So that was a lot of pain for them because it was December 6th holiday. So it was shocking for them.
I think many of them were able to re-enter the programs of unemployment. We continued to handle everybody's health care for December and January's complete closure. And when we reopened in February, we had paid all those premiums. So not one employee who was covered under the healthcare program was in danger of losing it. That was a big and important part that the partnership took on, to make sure there was money available to pay those bills. When we closed on December 6th, 5th, whatever it was, it took a couple weeks. And then I think we decided that somewhere around just before Christmas, that this closure would possibly last at least 2 months and possibly 3, based on the previous closure and all the numbers that were coming back. So this time around, we just shut the restaurant down. We turned everything off. We moved everything we had into one walk-in. All other refrigeration was unplugged, cleaned, bleached, whatever. The place has been, we've had cleaning people there regularly. We just shut the place down as to save money. Our, running a walk-in is like $900 a month.
Oh,
2 of them, all the refrigeration we have, this all costs, $5,000-$6,000 a month just sitting there. So to save money this time around, we turned absolutely everything off. We turned all the gas off. We unplugged and shut down the furnaces. We were in for a long haul. So honestly, in January, when they told us we were going to reopen soon, we were completely shocked.
Yeah.
And then we had to go back in and turn everything on.
It took me by surprise too. So were you expecting more like maybe March or April?
Yes.
March.
Yeah.
I had a hunch we might be able to open mid-February, but it was just based on New Year's Eve gatherings and 6 weeks after New Year's Eve. So I was thinking maybe mid-February, but things were looking so grim. The whole metrics and the whole information freeway, it's just been one of those moments where you just think, okay, well then, all right, we'll get open. But we took our time to reopen. We reopened, what was it, February 11th? 10th. We opened February 10th. So we could have opened January 28th, but.
And we closed the 11th because of rain. And then reopened the 12th.
So we just wanted to get open and do it right. And it takes a couple of weeks to get, the machine well oiled, because the biggest goal was to make sure that when people walked into Foreign Cinema, it wasn't a limited experience. It was everything you would hope it could be.
Our experience would be, we dine out in Berkeley irregularly. We wanted the experience at Foreign Cinema to be basically the same experience you would have gotten pre-pandemic. A little less crowded, but the same experience. So we didn't want to cut any corner if we could help it.
Was it easy to bring staff back on?
We have been communicating with our staff with weekly updates, emails, whatever, trying to make sure everybody understood their jobs were safe. We were holding them for them. We wanted them back. We don't want to train new people. These people have been doing this job some of them for 20 years. So really, we have staff that's been there over 20 years.
Wow.
So it's important to us to keep these incredibly important people. And that meant the day we opened, February 10th, it was like we had never been closed. Everybody knew exactly what to do. The cooks knew what to do. Everybody showed up at exactly their right time. The espresso machine was ready to go. The drinks, there was no training. There was nobody learning. There was nothing. It was just like, and I said to a waiter, I said, gosh, I feel like I've never been closed.
And what about your vendors? Was that hard to like reestablish that supply chain?
We paid everybody off this time promptly. We're involved with them, but yes, because the reopening caught them by surprise, and they did not have many items in stock that you would have wanted. So that was a bit of an issue. But we also stocked stuff ourselves, so we weren't left, in trouble for dry goods.
Okay.
What's important for, I think, the public to know is that there's lots of good news out there. There's lots of encouragements. And, just to kind of give you a perspective, one restaurant has 200 vendors, which is part of the whole supply chain of, winemakers, farmers. So many people are involved in a restaurant. And so
when Gayle says farmers, we mean small farmers, people who do very tiny things and they're desperate for work and sales.
So when one restaurant is not operational, it's basically 210 enterprises, small and medium and large, have been impacted. So I think the world has realized, what a conduit, a restaurant really is. Not only does it make, amazing experiences for people that last, forever in their memories, it's really part of the working horse of this country. So that's why it's really important to recognize everyone's local restaurant, large and small, and support it right now.
Absolutely.
So, someone who wants to, help a restaurant could buy a gift certificate. Their companies could donate to a GoFundMe page. Some of the restaurants have shops and they're making products. That's going to get them through if everyone understands that.
To go helps a lot of restaurants. We do to go, but it's with 100 seats, we're fine.
We have clients though that have not wanted to come back until they're fully vaccinated, and a lot of people are vaccinated in the community. So we do have to-go food, of course, every day that we're open, to make sure that those clients who don't feel like coming out yet can safely come and pick up food to go.
What have you learned about the restaurant business and yourselves throughout this whole pandemic?
Well, about my what?
Let me chime in because I'll say I personally felt very depressed about it because I felt like when the whole industry was wiped out in one movement, it was depressing to not be able to practice the craft that you've been putting decades of your life into. So I took a hit, mentally. I think a lot of chefs have, and their well-being is a big deal. So we've learned that there's just lots of issues that are gonna kind of bubble up here that have been a huge issue during this past year. And we want to make it known that to the audience out there, anything that you can do to help is greatly appreciated. And mental health and a little PTSD. I think for poor chefs and restaurants that are still not able to open yet because of their physical parameters are still suffering.
They're suffering significantly different than we are.
Yeah.
We have almost 100 seats that are indoors but outdoors. You're not on a street, you're in a private courtyard. So we are very particularly fortunate, and some of our friends have suffered much greater than we have. I think one thing I've learned about myself is I've always known I like to be busy, so I got to do something. So for the first 90-day closure, I was at that restaurant every day. doing anything, something, nothing, just going. The second closure, I decided to shut down and just not do anything. So,
but I think random acts of kindness were really mind-blowing. We during the first closure, and this is what we've learned. During the first closure, we had an old client call to say that she was worried we would never reopen. And, at that time, we were going day by day. And she said, I don't care. It's whatever you need. Do you need me to pay your PG&E bill? What can I do? And we tried to tell her, no, it's fine. She goes, no, I'm not hanging up until you tell me what you need. And we said, well, oh my goodness. And I believe that she, wrote a check for $1,000 just to help us do whatever we could, to put it towards our staff or whatever healthcare benefits, which I believe we did.
We used that sort of money that we got. We had a small GoFundMe. We used that money to help assist us pay for the healthcare benefits, which are substantial when you have as many employees as we do. It's substantial every month. And also giving grant programs to people in our staff who, how do I say this, having difficulties getting unemployment benefits. So we were able to grant money to those people. When you're working for $20 an hour or $18 an hour, a loan of $1,000 is almost unpayable. So when we could give out grants of $300, $400, $500 or more, it was very important to us not to give any individual a burden when this thing was over.
We learned that, it happened, Armageddon kind of happened, especially to this industry and many other industries. I mean, bartenders alone, bars, they are really suffering right now. So I know there's the 86 Fund. If anybody wants to look that up, companies can donate bits of stock that could go very far to help many bartenders or many other enterprises that aren't able to open up yet. And I think we just learned about the amazing amount of kindness that really is meaningful to us, being kind and then to receiving kindness. And really, I wake up asking myself, what can I do today to make as many people better off than they were, before? And that's really what it comes down to.
The other half, I think the other half of your question was, how does this affect our view of the restaurant industry? It's very difficult for many restaurateurs to be prepared for incredible tragedy. Most restaurants are very close. Their margins are practically nil. We're a pretty big restaurant. We have a level of margin. We keep certain amount of cash on hand, certainly not for 90 days, but we do keep some money. So being prepared for something to go wrong is important, and being extremely communicative. But from the perspective of the restaurant, this is, I think, the first time Gayle's been cooking. We've been cooking in around restaurants since early 1980s. Each time in the mid 80s, we had a bit of a recession. At the beginning of the 80s, there was a recession. We had a huge recession in 1989. We had another huge collapse in 1891. There was a gradual drag out of 1991 into a collapse, or in 2001. We had another collapse in 2008. Each time, the restaurants that we were involved with were not significantly impacted by these events. 2008, we took a big hit on our private dining, but our actual people dining in the restaurant kept increasing. So the problems of 2008 passed us by. This is the first time in my life, almost 40 years in restaurants, where the restaurant I worked in was deeply impacted by a tragedy. So that puts it in a slightly different perspective. I understand that in each one of these instances of financial downturn, other people have been affected, and sometimes restaurants, but in all the restaurants I've worked in, have been able to get through them without issue. So this was an interesting wake-up call. I've been expecting a downturn. I've been expecting a downturn for a couple of years, and I've been warning everybody around me. I thought it would be some sort of financial catastrophe, and we've been kind of, holding on to a little money at the restaurant and whatnot. But this I did not expect.
And so has that changed your plans for the future and future concerns?
I think in the future, restaurants probably won't get hit next time, at least for another couple sections. I don't know. We will continue to maintain being prepared for catastrophe. Our next catastrophe in this neighborhood, Northern California, is a natural disaster, other than fire, because we in San Francisco aren't probably going to suffer that. We could suffer an earthquake. So being slightly prepared for that is probably more important to us now.
Mm-hmm. Well,
but what is most important to us is giving a sense of normalcy and generosity and warmth to our guests who come to the restaurant, and seeing their whole personalities change as they sit down, of course, masked. And that's been like one of the greatest pleasures, is just being able to bring life to people, because they're so starved and so appreciative of what you're doing. And it's lovely to reconnect, because, we've been doing a lot of soul searching, as everybody in the pandemic has. Over the past year, we've had nothing but time to think about the future.
I don't know if you can hear it, but we have two cats, and one of them is a talker.
Anyway, it's been a pleasure to be able to bring happiness to people.
The oil?
Happiness to people.
yeah. And, it's almost 7:45. I want to leave some time for people to ask questions. There are quite a few questions right now in the box. But I do have one more question. And I wonder if you're optimistic about the San Francisco restaurant landscape for after we get out of this pandemic.
I'm totally optimistic. I am absolutely, it's all going to come back to us. We hope.
The downtown area is completely impacted because of the workers who have not returned, and the empty office buildings that will affect the businesses that were downtown. So there's going to be some realignments for sure that are very serious for the downtown area. But I feel like every neighborhood will eventually, reignite with community once we have these vaccines. And I have a lot of faith that the city is going to bounce back.
Oh, the city will come back. Many restaurants will return. Hopefully in a couple of years, it's all completely forgotten. It's a Siamese cat. The thing's a chatterbox. I don't know if you can hear it.
But we're happy to take questions, but Lisa, you're going to need to read them to us.
Okay, I will.
And so we take as many questions as possible.
Okay. So somebody asked, have you been approached by tech companies to partner with you? And
no.
Okay.
Not one.
Not one.
Where are you?
Hey, wait. I got to say this. Foreign Cinema is a ginormous restaurant, and it's very difficult to consider doing too much else. We're pretty happy just keeping our fingers and going to Foreign Cinema each day and making sure our staff knows that we're involved.
Okay. Let's see. Somebody asked, you've pivoted so many times during the pandemic. What have you learned about from the process of change, and what advice can you give other restaurants?
From our perspective, it's very difficult to do a to-go program, a to-go food program, if you're a restaurant that's based on people coming to you for the experience. I mean, food is one aspect of it. So it's very difficult to just pivot to doing to-go food. I don't really know how to answer that question. Yes,
I pivoting, if I hear that verb one more time, I'm going to just die. I totally get it. And the restaurateurs that we know are the strongest people in the universe. I think for everyone, it's unique, and we don't have an easy answer for that.
It's a complex. That's a complex.
It sounds
question.
like though that you've been communication was key. Communication with your staff, your.
Our most important thing is to continually communicate with our most valuable resource, which is our staff.
Mm-hmm.
Food, farmers, but the staff, maintaining good communication with them was extremely important from the get-go.
And to give them as much as we could. I mean, we tried to
whatever
give them,
we could.
Yeah, we tried to give them cash bonuses.
We did, but there's only so much. There's only so much we can do financially.
That's not a prescription for every vendor out there. I think if it makes more sense to close completely down, get rent relief, and then get your PPP loans and then reopen, whatever it takes to stay in the game is our prescription, and it's going to be different for each person in their own enterprise. It's not easy. It's easy to be in a position where we are with an outdoor space. So if there's help to be given, hopefully the city and the state will help.
Okay. Well, Charlotte would like to know about your recipe book. We'll kind of change the topic a little bit.
The Foreign Cinema Cookbook?
Yeah, the Foreign Cinema Cookbook. What inspired you to write it? Have you been asked by so many people to put the recipes down in the book?
Well, yes. We were approached 15 years ago to start writing the book, and it took a lot of resources. I think it took Judy Rogers at Zuni 20 years to write a book. I think we did this pretty quick. Gayle wrote the whole book. Those are her words. We had a moment in time when it was a good time for us to produce that cookbook.
You have to have stories, and you have to have a way to communicate how a cookbook should be presented. And so when we were presented with the idea to produce a cookbook, we were still pretty much running the restaurant at a 24/7 level, and the perspective that you need to create a work requires time. So in 2015, the ideas were able to become crystallized in 2015 as to how the book could be organized and what recipes we should present. It's a lot of young chefs put out cookbooks, and sometimes I think perspective is good. So we had plenty of that by the time we wrote the book.
Mm-hmm. And let's see. Somebody is glad to hear your cat joining the talk. I like to hear your cat.
Yes, Dashi, come. Somebody's very happy.
And somebody asks, what's your perspective on the role of ghost kitchens in the food landscape of San Francisco?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. That's a political landmine. Ghost kitchens. Well, ghost kitchens are making food, sometimes licensed by restaurants. Sometimes, I'm not really sure. Yeah, if someone's going to be producing food in a kitchen like that, you just hope that it's an inspected kitchen and that you're getting a quality product. We personally at Foreign Cinema do not do any delivery through any organization, and we have not lent our name or recipes to anyone. to manufacture. So, and that's been a concern for other restaurants who've had their names pirated. We're not involved at this time. So if you see our name on a menu, it's not us, unless it's our restaurant.
Okay, somebody asks, have any of your recipes changed as a result of the pandemic?
No.
No, absolutely. Not one thing changed. It still costs $250 to make a beef stock. We haven't changed anything. We haven't cheapened or got any cheaper item. We still use the same olive oils. We wanted to make sure that whatever the experience was that you were getting before the pandemic would be the exact same experience. We're still there every day tasting the food. We are there managing our restaurant.
I think what has changed food-wise since the pandemic is a deep belief and investment and almost a raison d'etre of what we do and why we do it. And it's only solidified our reason we're there in this space.
We didn't even make the menu smaller. We've maintained the same menu, the same wine list, the same drinks. We cut ice out of a big block. We don't want people to feel that when they come to the restaurant, there's been a difference.
Wow, amazing.
And when it costs us a little money.
Yeah, so somebody asks, it's kind of a good follow-up to that, is have your profit margins then been squeezed?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
We're a restaurant that was successful because I'll admit it, we did a lot of private dining, which means people could order a party at the restaurant, and we had 3 rooms dedicated to that, and that part of our business is not existent at this time.
There's no private dining, so every restaurant that had that as their business model, private dining is completely wiped out across the country. So every caterer, every restaurant who became experts at curating special events that's gone. It's wiped out. An entire.
It is for right now. It will return.
Yeah.
We do 30 to 40 weddings a year at the restaurant that are buy the whole restaurant out. So that aspect is gone, and that changed our profit margin quite a bit.
So you're looking at today a wedding party that would be 12 people and outdoors, socially spaced, and incredibly grateful.
2 tables of 6.
And 2 incredibly grateful bride and grooms and their family, because for this whole time, every event that they possibly planned has been canceled. So we're happy to report that we made a couple brides and grooms happy with, the 3rd wedding plan.
Very small parties.
We were able to accommodate them and
family only.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. There's been a lot of just virtual weddings.
Yeah.
Okay, and somebody asked, what are some changes that happened over the course of the pandemic that you think will be here to stay when you come out of this?
Here to stay when we come out of it.
Fewer guests at each restaurant, limited seating, private dining.
Well, for a little while.
And then online presence is really big. I mean, every restaurant.
Within a year, first quarter next year, we hope that the world goes back to what it once was. All of us out enjoying ourselves, living our lives, being out amongst other people, being amongst family, friends, whatever. We can only hope that this is the ultimate outcome of science's work at treatments and vaccines. We need the restaurant to return to what it once was. That would be really good for everybody involved. and for the world, for the community. No one wants to be isolated. No one wants to wear a mask. And certainly no one wants to be 8 or 10 feet from another person. So ultimately, we hope to go back. I think the biggest damage here to the restaurant industry is going to be affecting small producers of some of the products that we use, who have literally been driven out of business. Small farmers, small producers, basically driven out of business by this. And the biggest impact is on small restaurants, neighborhood restaurants in a crowded community like San Francisco, which will probably never come back. And certain retail that's probably gone for good. That's probably the outcome of the ultimate outcome of this thing.
Have you had to adjust prices much? Or is that too sensitive of a topic?
No,
No,
not
not
really.
really.
Not really.
No, I mean, we should raise prices, but we this is the big fight. No, we can't raise prices anymore. So we really, no.
We see ourselves as a restaurant that is supposed to be accessible by everybody. Hey, we've actually had a lot of costs go up on us during this pandemic. We did raise prices a couple of bits, 5%, 10% here, there, because of our costs really went up. The supply chain on meats, supply chain on goods and cheeses all went up. Some things really spiked. And there was a couple of issues with that between the former government running America instituted certain levies against European goods. And that's been trickling down during this period. So that's caused...
Hopefully the Biden administration will look at that and change it, because it really hurts producers
of cheese and whatnot that
and
comes out of
wine.
Europe. We use Parmesan cheese and whatnot. We pay more for all of this product.
So it's hurt the producers and the American citizens trying to deliver it to the American public.
The biggest damage here was, again, more corporatization, essentially, of things that were once or have become artisanal in the past 30 years. Many artisans went back to making cheese and growing things and producing small lot stuff. They were deeply hurt by this pandemic.
But we have hope that things will return. It'll just take time.
One of our major farmers was deeply impacted. He was rescued by creating farm boxes that became a way to get his product out. But he is really, and he's been affected by other elements in the community like marijuana growing and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very sad. What's another question?
A couple other questions. What is the most popular entree at your restaurant?
Fried chicken?
Grilled pork chop.
There you go. No, actually, it's duck.
Or oysters.
Duck. Well, that's not an entree.
It's a lot of things. Some people order oysters as an entree. Jean-Paul Gaultier ordered
oysters as an entree.
Oysters as an entree.
We sell a lot of duck breast, duck leg. It's very popular. I think we're really well known for duck. We do a really good treatment with spices on it, and
next question.
It's delicious.
The final question is, where did the name of your restaurant come from?
Foreign Cinema?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the two partners that we were involved with in the very beginning, I think it was his idea.
Oh, okay. I thought it was yours, maybe, because you are a film major.
Television broadcasting, somewhat film.
Art history.
Painter. John was really a film buff. And I believe when we first looked over the place, it was his wife who suggested throwing a movie onto the back wall in the outdoor dining space.
Yeah, it's a perfect space.
So while the name Foreign Cinema evokes only foreign, we show everything.
Yeah, we show anything.
We show everything. American, independent, all of the above.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for welcoming us to your beautiful home and showing us the delicious cocktail.
Thank you. Well, I drank mine.
Yeah.
Did you drink yours?
I will. And I'm going to let everybody know that we have your cookbooks in the library.
Oh, great. We were really honored, Lisa, that you invited us to do this. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for doing this. It's my pleasure.
Our pleasure.
It's our honor.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody who attended. We hope you enjoyed it. This was recorded, so I will send out an email to let everybody know when it's ready.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Ciao.